U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Moving towards Moscow.
We didn't watch this yet?
Nope, we did not. Which is why it's right at the start.
Demonstrations have erupted
Radio
in the
Free
country
Europe,
as
American
thousands have taken to
propaganda,
the streets
CIA.
in anti-government protests, spurred by widespread opposition to a new law that stifles democracy. Critics insist that this is further proof of a drift towards Russia. And yet, such
And I promise if there's more IEDs blowing up in top space, I will give breakdowns on how they're
Russian
made.
occupation, and the same government openly supports European Union
Isn't
membership.
that right, guys?
So, just what exactly is happening in Georgia? Hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is James Kerr-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict, security, and statehood. There can be little doubt that we live in strange and confusing geopolitical times. Many of the established patterns of international relations are being challenged as alignments change.
I just think there's
in
better
unexpected
ones to make
ways.
than that
A
one.
fascinating
You know what's
case in
really cool? You know, sparklers, right? Like you can just buy them. Like kids can buy them, I think, even. Right. So like you take like a bunch of those, like 100 or so, and you just tape them into like a stick, like a big stick, and then you put one out slightly higher. That's the fuse. It'll hit down and it will ignite the sparklers, and it will basically make like a mini thermite reaction. It's like a safe thermite reaction. You definitely you'll definitely will burn your house down if you do it inside, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like the brake fluid thing might not burn your house down, but the sparklers definitely would. But it's like a safer version of thermite that's kind of fun to do.
I've done that one.
Point is Georgia. In 2008, it fought a short but brutal war against neighboring Russia, a conflict that saw Moscow recognize the independence of two of its regions.
I know, right? It's
even
like,
though these
bro, who do you
areas
think you are talking all fancy and elitist to me like that?
Under Russian military control, there are now growing accusations that the Georgian government is steadily coming under Russia's influence. Georgia lies in the Caucasus, bordered by Russia to the north, Azerbaijan to the southeast, and Armenia and Turkey to the south. To its west, it lies on the Black Sea. Its total area is around...
Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey held a joint military exercise today, and some like, it was either an Azeri, I think it was an Azeri account, posted, it's like Armenia is missing out, both like military and economically, not joining in on this. And it's like, why would Armenia? It's literally the exercise to kill Armenia. Why would they join it? They'll demonize them over anything, you know.
Around 70,000 square kilometers, or 27,000 square miles. However, while two of its regions, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, making up around 20% of the country's territory, have unilaterally declared independence, they've been recognized only by Russia and a small...
Yeah, that's because it's all a Russian op. Just like the Donbass. This is Putin's playbook. Like, it's so obvious. Just look at what he does. Every single time, it's the same fucking playbook. And it's not even his, it's just the Soviet playbook. The agent. Well, it's not even that. It's even older than that. This has been around since the days of empires. This kind of shit. This isn't new. I don't know why people can't see it for what it is.
So I've been really wanting to play StarCraft lately.
Why?
Bro, it's fun. The co-op is fun. All right.
Such a high learning curve.
Georgia's population is around 3.
Not if you play on easy.
Ethnic Georgians account for almost 90%, followed mainly by Azeris and Armenians. Religiously, the country is predominantly Eastern Orthodox Christian. Georgia has a long and truly fascinating history. While a distinct Georgian identity is believed to have emerged more than 2,000 years.
It's
not a long conversation. Russia sent agents.
It will be difficult to convince you. Bro, I literally was there.
They sent agents into these areas. They then get a majority. This is called
France.
imperialism.
New Caledonia.
And then they send Russian peacekeepers into the area.
Mm-hmm.
And then, funnily enough, once Russian peacekeepers are in the area, they then declare independence from the country. The only difference between Ukraine and Georgia is Georgia isn't a big enough country for the West to give a fuck about. They don't offer enough to the world.
Yeah, they were like, is it really Europe, though?
Or for the West to give a fuck. For Europe to give a fuck. Ukraine has a shale gas deposit that can rival Russia's. They have oil deposits that were being drilled in 2018, looking for oil that could have challenged Russia's gas and oil monopoly over Europe. That's why Europe is pushing so hard for this. That's why America's supporting them so hard. Not the only reason. I guarantee it's a reason. It's not the only reason. Obviously, I think most of the people that are backing Ukraine are doing it because they're libs and they're like, democracy. We can't let Putin do Putin things. That's why they're doing it. It's not actually, they don't actually give a shit about anything else. It's all geopolitics and sort of games to them. So, this is why they picked to defend Ukraine only in 2022, by the way. Not in 2014 when Russia stole
What are you talking
Crimea
about? That was an American
and
backed
displaced
coup.
the Crimean Tatars.
Nah, America did the coup in 2014.
And then sent Russian agents, primarily
Did you know that
neo-Nazis
the people
from the
who
Russian
died in
Imperial Movement.
Euromaidan actually just overdosed on drugs purposely to die to make Russia look bad? Aaron Mate literally said that. Aaron Mate literally said that.
Oh my god. That's awesome. I don't care.
Years ago, Georgia's cultural, political, and military influence grew during the Middle Ages when it became a unified kingdom. However, this golden age ended with the Mongol invasions in the 13th century.
Epic.
While the kingdom later re-emerged, it soon fragmented into several different entities. Over the following centuries, the Georgia fragmented into several.
There were different ones? Tibet?
What?
Tibet shall reign forever.
Yeah, so like when Genghis Khan dies, his territories break up among different war chiefs.
Oh, it's post.
Yeah. So Genghis literally was the only one who held things together.
Yep. Okay, interesting. So that they didn't make it to Japan.
No, they fought Japan though. Do you know about this?
Vaguely, but I thought they made it to Japan, but I guess
no, they did. They landed on the beach and fought there.
And they got fucked up.
Well, yeah. Well, they had to fucking cross, and the Japanese could see them coming, and then they tried it multiple times with the exact same tactics.
The Japanese just staged their samurais, I'm assuming. Fuck their shit up.
Yeah, I think. Well, the Japanese they because the Mongols had trouble disembarking with horses and stuff.
Yes.
So
because their chief combat was cavalry.
That's
archery.
That's the only thing they knew to do.
But how much it got them?
The people of the steppe were already cavalry archers as well. But
yes.
People underestimate how advanced cavalry archery is, right? So
it was hundreds of years ahead of where they were.
But chariots were destroyed because people of the steppe came in and they were using fucking horse archers. I want to say when Tomyris fights Cyrus might still have chariots, but don't quote me on that. That was I'm not sure what time period chariots fall out, but that's why they fall out, because people are able to ride on the horse, right? But then the fucking what is it? It's the something Parthen shot or something, where they like are able to like shoot directly behind them while riding forward.
Yes.
So like that's what. So like the Mongols could ride in front of you and then start shooting back at you too. You know,
that's pretty crazy because that's
they also
there's a lot of strength.
They didn't use reins on the horses.
Really?
So the way they ride horses is something that's called like they call it the natural horsemanship. They are basically sewn into the like their legs are like sewn to the horse's saddle, right? So they have like pants that they put on. Okay. Basically, but the pants are like very hard leather. They're attached to the horse, and they basically walk. They like run, right? So the horse feels the motion, and they're able to steer the horse just with their legs.
Oh,
no reins.
That's very interesting. So it's that makes total sense, actually. That's very interesting.
Several different entities. Over the following centuries, the Georgians faced growing pressure from the Ottoman and Safavid empires to their south. In 1783, one of the Georgian kingdoms sought protection from a powerful new regional actor to its north, Imperial Russia. It would be a fateful decision. Within 30 years, the kingdom had been annexed, and by the middle of the 19th century, the Georgian people as a whole were under Russian control. In 1917, as Tsarist Russia collapsed into revolution, the Georgians joined the neighboring Armenians and Azerbaijanis to form the Transcaucasian Democratic Federative
Wait, you mean
Republic.
the Armenians and Azeris joined together to do something?
Was this before or after the genocide?
I mean, this is after the Ottoman, I think, right?
So before the genocide, then?
I don't know.
Or is it Ottomans that did, wasn't it?
I think Ottoman is like 1900s.
Okay.
I don't know.
26th of May, 1918, the Georgians broke away, creating the Democratic
Republic
it
was the Turkish that did that, right?
However,
it was
this
the Ottomans.
lasted just 3 years. In February 1921, the Red Army invaded, and Georgia was incorporated into the Soviet Union as the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. For the next 70 years, Georgia remained within the USSR. However, this ended at the start of the 1990s.
You know? There's Uzbek. I didn't know what they fucking called the states. Uzbek USSR is funny.
Uzbek SSR, Soviet Socialist Republic, Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic. So yeah, so this further enforces exactly what I say whenever tankies try and defend the Soviet Union. I'm like, defend ethnic isolation. Like this is literally Jim Crow shit. They made countries of single groups of people because they didn't want them in Russia proper.
Based.
Remained within the USSR. However, this ended at the start of the 1990s after nationalist protests
referenced the Protocols of Elder Zion. I mean, I wrote that book. That's a great book.
Declared independence on the 9th of April 1991, formally gaining statehood when the Soviet Union dissolved at the end of that year. On the 31st of July 1992, Georgia was admitted to the United Nations as a sovereign independent state. But like most of its former partners, it initially opted to join the Russian-led Commonwealth of Independent States, a loose grouping of former Soviet republics. From the start, Georgia faced enormous challenges. In addition to a civil war sparked
I know
by the
nothing
overthrow
about
of
this country, by the way.
Yeah, this guy.
All I know is that Stalin's from there.
This guy rules because he specifically rules on like autonomous movements and stuff.
Okay, I know to speed it up.
Country's first president, two regions, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, attempted to break away, leading to violent clashes. In both cases, this eventually ended with Kremlin-brokered ceasefires policed by Russian troops.
Oh wow!
All this.
Look, exactly what I said.
Severely strained relations between Moscow and Tbilisi, while Georgia's new president, Edward Shevardnadze, who'd served as the last Soviet foreign minister,
what was his name?
As a liberalizing pro-Western figure.
Can we run that back and hear that guy's name one more time?
Edward Shevardnadze.
Nazis. The real question is: should Afghanistan be a country?
Between Moscow and Tbilisi.
Because like when I was telling that dumbass earlier about how she doesn't know shit about fuck, right?
Yeah.
So I should call her a prot because I saw she was from Northern Ireland. I should be like, "Are you a prot?" Anyway, so like the Haqqanis, the main reason why they were able to like get power before the CIA is because the Patika, like because they have, it's like a landlord feudal type system, right? So like Haqqani, he took 3 different areas and like merged them together under his rule, right? And so it's right on the border when an empire comes in and like fails to progress further, right? So they benefit from having a border territory to be able to like transfer drugs and smuggle guns, right? So they become one of the best criminal groups, and then the CIA comes in and inflates them even further, right? So if the British Empire didn't put that fucking line there, if they're able to push just a little bit further, the Haqqanis may not even exist. But they couldn't. They couldn't push past Waziristan, basically.
Well, Georgia's new president, Edward Shevardnadze, who'd served as
Wouldn't
the
it
last
make more
Soviet
sense to
foreign-
Afghanistan to encompass Pakistan?
Well, also, like, did you see that Sirajuddin Haqqani is bald? I could not stop laughing when I first saw it. Because it's because of the tan line specifically. Like he's been hiding it for so long. Bro, but like he's literally Sirajuddin Haqqani, and the fucking like whatever the ICC or whatever court handles the fucking sanctions for terrorists and stuff gave him a pass to go to Saudi Arabia for Hajj. Wild. It's like, so James, it's like when you scare governments enough that they just let you go to do Hajj, you know, because they're like scared to say no to him.
Minister was seen as a liberalizing pro-Western figure. He nevertheless attempted to maintain working ties with Moscow. However, everything would change in 2003. With no movement on the breakaway territories, chronic economic problems, and an inability to tackle corruption, Shevardnadze was peacefully overthrown by the Rose Revolution.
That's a hard line, bro.
A young Western-educated...
That's a hard line to survey.
Another Western-backed coup.
Lawyer Mikhail Saakashvili became president. In addition to promising major reforms, he vowed to move Georgia closer to the European Union and NATO, leading to a sharp deterioration in relations with Russia. In August 2008, a war erupted. However, within days, Russia had scored a decisive victory. Soon afterwards, and in retaliation for the West's recognition of Kosovo's declaration of independence from Serbia just a few months earlier, Russia announced that it had recognized South Ossetia and Abkhazia as independent states. The conflict marked a decisive break in relations between Georgia and Russia as Tbilisi cut off diplomatic ties to Moscow and withdrew from the CIS. It also...
Waiting for my 10 million. I think isn't it higher than 10 million?
Sorry. After the scorched earth of the Soviet Union, I would not call what America did in Afghanistan scorched earth.
It was an occupation.
It was an occupation, yes.
But also, as we've pointed out before, that like a majority of the atrocities were committed by the Afghan government in both.
Yes.
Severely damaged Saakashvili's standing, as many accused him of having recklessly stirred up tensions with Russia. His increasingly authoritarian administration
only 5 million.
faced growing allegations of corruption and human rights abuses.
That's an old bounty,
though. Maybe it's because he has experience in a country where Russia has done this before. Maybe.
It is 10 million. Man, how does he not got a 15 milli?
2012, Saakashvili's United National Movement was defeated in parliamentary elections by a new political force, the Georgian Dream Coalition. The following year, Saakashvili's second and final presidential term ended. Facing various criminal charges, he soon left the country. From the start, the new Georgian Dream administration attracted considerable attention, not least of all because its billionaire leader, Bidzina Ivanishvili, had made his fortune in post-Soviet Russia. Despite this, the new government maintained the country's pro-Western orientation. In 2014, it signed an...
So this guy is basically a Soviet oligarch?
Even if it was a conspiracy, who the fuck cares?
Yeah. So is this guy just
not least of all because
a Soviet oligarch who just cashed in when the union fell? Is that what this guy is? Because that's what it seems like. And now he's pushing back towards Putin. Interesting.
Its billionaire leader, Bidzina Ivanishvili, had made his fortune in post-Soviet Russia. Despite this, the new government maintained the country's
And it would be pretty
pro-Western
cool
orientation.
to get someone in Georgia to talk about this.
In 2014,
every
it signed
time,
an
like I
association
literally have
agreement.
gone to even fellas, been like, you're in Georgia, never respond to me.
What the fuck?
Because they're all
The
CIA
EU
backed.
that included
Bro,
a
Saif
significant
al
trade
Adel
partnership.
also has a $10 million bounty. It's the $15 million bounty days are over, I guess. They ended with fucking Swahari. And guess who cashed out on that? Sirajuddin Haqqani, in my opinion. No.
It also opened a joint training and evaluation center with NATO. But in contrast to the previous administration, it also took a more conciliatory approach towards Russia. Although the countries still had no formal relations, many argued that if Georgia were to have any hope of regaining the lost territories, it would need to avoid antagonizing Moscow and re-establish working ties. As a result, efforts began to try to normalize relations by focusing on trade, travel, humanitarian cooperation, and other issues unrelated to the conflict. At the same time,
But like, why? Why would you want to? Why would you want to go back to Russia unless they're lining your pockets? There is no rational reason that you would want to be a partner with Russia at this point. The only one that would do it is China, and that's because China has control over that relationship.
It's crazy because, like, Bush was totally ready to repair everything and, like, because like you have to think about, like, this is coming off of like Clinton's like defense of Tiananmen Square with Denkinist policies and stuff. So like they were literally didn't talk anything about what happened in Chechnya. Like it was not uttered in America. Nobody knew it happened.
Yeah. Like we even emailed we didn't email her. We sent
we literally
message to the chick.
The
was,
girl who put the lip gloss on. Literally messaged her.
Yeah.
No replies.
Nothing. Unfortunately.
But what was I just saying?
Was it about this?
I mean, yes.
The state? Someone will tell you.
Chechnya. Yeah. So like George Bush was like out there fishing with him and shit. You know?
Oh, yes,
George
he was.
Bush was trying so hard to mend the relationship with Russia. And like think about it. Look at fucking Israel, bro.
Yeah.
Look at China with the fucking Uyghurs. Is anyone standing up to them? No, because there's fucking economic ties and shit. And like all Russia did is make themselves harder to sanction at the end of the day so they could do the shit but like they could have been doing this shit anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's stupid. Like if you literally can get away with all the crimes they're doing, we know this.
Tbilisi avoided any steps that would inflame tensions with Moscow. For example, while Georgia condemned Russia's invasion of Crimea in 2014, it refused to follow EU and NATO states and impose sanctions against Russia. While the government argued that it was merely taking a pragmatic approach to relations with Russia, the opposition increasingly accused the government of pro-Russian
Honestly,
sentiments.
if I was Georgia, I wouldn't support sanctions against my neighbor.
No.
In June 2019,
unless you're Ukraine, then fuck them.
Oh yeah. But like Georgia doesn't. Georgia's like also doesn't want to fucking like be in more.
No,
than they
also have no protection. Like at least Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania, at least they have NATO right there. They're in NATO, right?
Yeah,
they have that protection.
It's unfortunate that all Georgian insurgents have done is run ISIS. But like, you know, like how I was saying to the Ukrainians in Syria, right? How they go down there because it's easier to kill Russians and stuff. Like that's what's actually beneficial of having Ukraine outside the system of the EU and NATO. Who's gonna stop them? What allies are gonna hold them back for their own interests, right? And so that's why Taiwan is kind of cool too. Like Taiwan can like be a wild card sometimes if they want to be. But Ukraine has been a wild card for a while. You know, Ukraine helped, like, we're one of the big helpers to invade Iraq.
I think you've mentioned it at some point.
Yeah, I think Zarqawi killed them too. I think Zarqawi cut off some Ukrainian heads.
Yes, we looked up who they killed. The Ukrainians were a part of it. Ukrainian and Russians. Yeah.
After a Russian lawmaker visited the Georgian parliament. To add to all this, Many observers now started to see parallels with what was happening in Putin's Russia. In particular, concerns were also growing about the government's domestic political record, with allegations that it was backsliding on fundamental democratic principles, such as respecting judicial independence and media freedom. Meanwhile, all this also appeared to be fed by what appeared to be growing Russian disinformation in the country, aimed at encouraging extremism and pushing anti-Western messages.
Extremism of what kind?
With Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. While the Georgians instinctively supported Ukraine, seeing parallels with their own situation, the Georgian government continued to balance its position. While it condemned the attack, accusing Russia of undermining international order and voting in favor of UN resolutions against Moscow, it still refused to impose sanctions. Despite this, concerns about the country's orientation were seemingly put to rest when Georgia applied to join the European.
When your 3-day war turns into a 3-year war, yeah, it's kind of necessary. You know, Putin kind of stepped in that one, and his country's grown quickly war weary. So it'll be interesting.
People are saying it likely another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
it's not ending tomorrow. So
no, it's definitely not.
Union alongside Moldova.
It just depends on how much Russians are willing to deal with it. How many Russians have to die for Putin's?
I don't think it matters.
Imperialist expansions.
I don't think it matters.
And Ukraine. But unlike the other two, which were awarded candidacy just months later, the EU instead outlined 12 priorities that needed to be addressed in Georgia. These included democratic reforms, improving the rule of law, and countering foreign disinformation. While the country seemingly began to address these issues, concern grew when the government introduced controversial new legislation. This required any organisation receiving more than 20% of its income from an external source to register as an agent of foreign influence, a law closely mirroring similar legislation introduced in Russia a decade earlier. However, facing considerable internal opposition, as well as criticism from the EU and the United States, the government eventually dropped the plans for the legislation. And in December 2023, Georgia was formally granted EU candidacy. While Georgia seemed to be back on the right track, the government sparked outrage when it reintroduced the controversial foreign agents legislation just a few months later. However, despite mass demonstrations and strong criticism from the EU and the United States, both of which made it clear that passing the new law would carry potentially serious consequences, this time the government refused to back down. On the 28th of May, it overrode a veto from the pro-Western president and passed the law by 84 votes to 30. While this has further fed the view that the government is now under Moscow's influence, the government strongly denies the accusation, arguing that such claims are just opposition disinformation. The problem is that as well as following Putin's political playbook, the government's rhetoric has now taken a distinctly pro-Russian turn, as strange conspiracy theories and Kremlin disinformation talking points have taken hold. For example, Ivanishvili, who remains the effective leader of the Georgian Dream, has accused something called the Global War Party of being behind the conflict in Ukraine and even forcing Georgia and Russia to war in 2000.
Isn't it funny how it's the exact same fucking rhetoric?
They referenced the Protocols of Elder Zion. I mean, I wrote that book. That's a great book.
I'm so tired.
Commie bastards. Well, actually, they're not communists anymore. They're a federation of independent, liberated states. Don't make me hurt you, Mikey.
I hate this.
2008. Meanwhile,
Go to treat
out for you have echoed such thoughts. So, what exactly is happening in Georgia? Is it really turning towards Russia? In truth, the picture is highly complex, confusing, and open to all sorts of interpretations.
No more
While the
military
current
aid.
developments may indeed mark a drift towards Moscow, there's another, more obvious explanation. The government is trying to strengthen its position before parliamentary elections later this year.
Yeah.
Although the opposition is fragmented.
Thank you. Somebody actually fucking said this
relatively
for
little
once.
Public support.
Yeah.
To this end, it's now trying to hinder the opposition.
Well, are we the only ones that said this? That there really is no opposition? Maybe.
No, just that it's like it's all stuff to help with elections and stuff. They're just
Okay.
And shore up its base. This would also explain its decision to introduce new anti-LGBT legislation, something that plays well amongst older voters in what is still a socially conservative country. Of course, the problem is that all this runs directly counter to the demands of Georgia's Western partners. In a country where support for EU membership runs as high as 80%, this presents the government with a serious problem.
80%.
Either way, it risks losing power unless it can reduce the levels of support for EU integration. And it's all this that makes Georgia's direction of travel particularly worrying. Even if the government is still not overtly pro-Russian, the fact that it's pushing back against the EU for its internal survival gives Moscow an ideal opportunity to exert influence. Unlike the EU, it won't condition its support on the...
Well, what other leader has been tanking domestic politics for his own purpose?
This guy looks vaguely German. I mean, he's definitely European, I guess.
It's like, sounds exactly like Trump, to be completely honest.
This guy?
No. The dude at the head of the party.
All this that makes Georgia's direction of travel...
He's saying that they're tanking foreign policy and to retain power domestically, and they're tanking internal policy at the same time. I'm like, who the fuck else is doing that?
Yeah,
even Trump.
Almost
not
like
in power
politics are fake.
Yeah.
Particularly worrying, even if the government is
at least we finally got somebody to do a good analysis
back against the EU for its internal survival.
Because it's a tough one.
An ideal.
It is.
Like I don't know. I think New Caledonia. I think we did good on.
Yes. But there were I did a little more research after we published. It was just to make sure that the troop numbers I said were correct. They were grossly under. So at least they're under and not over. It was 30,000, not 15,000. Macron sent 30,000 police to New Caledonia to suppress that. So yeah.
Exert influence. Unlike the EU, it won't condition its support on the rule of law.
One without nation states.
Of course, while it may seem unrealistic to expect Georgia to pursue closer ties to Moscow while part of the country is under Russian occupation, one only needs to look to nearby Moldova. Although the situations are somewhat different, one can still see a substantial body of pro-Russian support in the country.
Wait, are you telling me that there's a third time that Putin's running this playbook?
Well,
no way.
There's that breakaway thing. They literally put it on the map, and they have the fucking Lukashenko meme, and he's the Despicable Me guy because he fucking put it on his own war map like an idiot. That they're gonna fucking eventually go in there.
Even though Russia also occupies a chunk of its territory. But in reality, Moscow doesn't even need a complete Georgian realignment. All it needs is to divide society enough to reduce the West's influence and the high levels of support for Euro-Atlantic integration, something that increasingly seems
Why don't they just like be better
in practice
than the West?
Policy.
That's too much effort.
I mean, so like put up I know it's just like the fucking Republicans, bro.
Why
is Belarus even a country? I know, right? Like if Belarus, for some reason, Belarus is the country that Putin has the most justification to just be like, this is mine now. But somehow he doesn't touch it, you know, because Lukashenko's always there giving him blowies, you know, and begging him for more money.
In this sense,
to actually fix this would require spending the trillions of dollars that Putin has hoarded from the Russian people. Yeah, that would actually require...
Oh, okay. Who are you now? Alexei Navalny? Whatever.
The ultimate aims of Russia
propaganda, bro,
do seem to be steadily converging.
He lives in a fucking billion-dollar mansion.
Nope. That's not real. It's not his. He doesn't own it. You've been listening to too much Alexei Navalny.
The oligarchs own it. Big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Big fucking deal.
Yeah.
It's his inner circle.
You know, Alexei Navalny's a criminal. He went to jail.
He could kill them and take that property and nobody would bat an eye.
It's not his only one.
Xi Jinping is a billionaire as well, apparently.
In the meantime,
all those stolen Chinese wages.
As Georgia heads to pivot,
$1 for every Chinese. That's like $1 from every Chinese.
To try and get it through people's heads that like wage theft is the most common crime.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't understand what that is. It's like, bro, your employer is stealing from you. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like your money is being taken from you. Isn't that what you want? Like to be against? Isn't that why you keep voting Republican? Because they say they'll cut your taxes?
Navalny failed because he wasn't a Nazi enough. He was only a little bit of a Nazi.
Well, no. See, the thing is he was very outright Nazi, and then the West was like, "Look, we'll bring you on 60 Minutes and stuff." I mean, we were just talking to the head of HTS, you know, You know, like we don't give a fuck. You know, we'll send fucking Anne Ripaport or whatever her name is over there to talk to Sirajuddin Haqqani. We don't give a fuck. We'll platform you. You just got to be a little less Nazi. And then he's like, okay, I'll pretend to be a liberal. And then he went through his liberal phase where he went on 60 Minutes and all this stuff. And they were like, wow, you're such a hero standing up to the man. And then it's like, even like Claire Daly has good points when talking about Alexei Navalny, where he's like, rallying hundreds of thousands and cities of millions, hardly a mass movement.
Are you quoting Russian election statistics at us?
No, that's actually Claire Daly says that too, I think, on 3%, right? Like,
yeah, because the vote was 97% for Putin, 3% for the opposition.
No, but I think like she says it on the support that he has back then when she talks. Well, after she's like literally, she gives this speech after the chemical attack, not even after his arrest, right? And she's like, I'd be, you know, we wouldn't be talking about him at all if he had been. It is arrested because she says if he had been arrested in anywhere other than in Russia. And then she talks about a bunch of other people are unjustly arrested. And one of them is the like Russian agent that got arrested in America, who was like a journalist, but also an agent. And they're like trying to be like, well, this is your suppression of the First Amendment. And then
Democracy
Russia
is not liberalism, by the way.
Yeah, they're two different things.
Just so you know. He was a nationalist.
I mean, he was...
elections. The country's president...
It's crazy. Yeah, he was... I'd say he's a Nazi.
Yeah, nationalist.
Yeah.
Leading efforts to challenge the government in what
she still supports the war in Ukraine.
Georgia back on a European path, with the government seemingly moving in a very different direction now.
Okay. Thank you.
Like at the end of the day, like Navalny would have...
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?